Hello friends, Namaskar, this is Sanjay. In today's video, we will be solving the 30 CDP questions from CTET December 2021 paper 1. This particular paper was conducted on the 3rd of January of 2022. As you are aware, the CTET December 2021 examination was conducted between the 16th of December 2021 till the 21st of January of 2022. So this exam was conducted over a period of 23 different days. So we actually have 23 different versions of paper 1 to solve from this particular exam. So in this series, we will be solving 30 questions for each subject from the December 2021 examination, which means that we will be solving 690 questions in total in this series. And these 690 questions will cover the entire CDP syllabus that you need to be aware of to prepare for the upcoming examination. So let us get started. As per contemporary perspectives, that is, as per the current scientific thoughts and beliefs, the course of child development is which of the following? Now, before answering this question, we have to understand that the development of a child is affected by various factors such as hereditary factors and social and cultural factors in which the child is growing up, and the physical and economic factors that the child is experiencing. And because of these various factors, the development of a child happens at different paces. In a sense, the development of every child happens in a different pace and a different way. And development can be physical, mental, or emotional. And because of these various factors, you can see that some children develop physically much faster than they develop mentally, or some children may develop physically much faster than they develop emotionally. Therefore, we have to remember that the development of every child happens in a different way and each child is unique. Now, when we look at the answer choices, the first one says the development is uniform across children and specific milestones are definitely achieved by all children as they reach certain age. Now, this is an incorrect statement because development is not uniform and all children will not achieve the specific milestones at the same age, right? Therefore, this is incorrect. Next, multi-directional. Since children grow up in various contexts. This is absolutely true because there are various contexts such as hereditary, social, cultural or physical economic factors which affect a child's development, and it is multi-directional such as physical, mental and emotional development. Therefore, this is a correct statement and the answer for this question. Next one, completely unpredictable even though the development is unidirectional for all. Now, development is not unidirectional. As I mentioned, development can be physical, mental, emotional. Therefore, several directions of development can happen. Therefore, it is not unidirectional and it is not completely unpredictable. We know that children will reach certain milestones, but at what age they will reach those milestones is something that cannot be predicted. Therefore, this statement is incorrect because it is not unidirectional. And the last one is determined solely or determined only by hereditary information received from the parents. This is incorrect because the child's development happens not only because of hereditary factors, but also because of social and cultural factors, physical and economic factors. Therefore, this also is an incorrect statement. Which principle of development states that development of motor skills starts from the center of the body and proceeds towards the extremities? Before answering this question, you have to understand two important principles of development. One is proximodistal and the next one is cephalocaudal. Now, cephalocaudal principle says that the development of the human body starts from the head and then moves downwards towards the spine and the limbs. And proximodistal principle says that the development of the body starts from the inside and goes towards outside. That is, the spine develops first and then the limbs will develop and then the fingers or the toes will develop. Therefore, the motor skills start from the spine and then the child can move his or her hands and legs. Only then the child will be able to control and move the fingers and toes. Therefore, proximodistal says development happens from the inside towards the outside, and cephalocaudal says development starts from the head or the brain and goes down towards the other parts of the body. Therefore, here, since we are being asked which principle is stating that skill starts from the center of the body and proceeds towards the extremities, it is proximodistal, and this is the correct answer because it says that development starts from the middle and goes towards the outer parts of the body. At what stage of development do children actively engage in make-believe play? Now what is this make-believe play? Make-believe play is games where children imagine themselves to be different characters. They can imagine themselves to be a prince or a princess or a king or a queen, or sometimes they imagine themselves to be animals from various cartoons that they might see. And children engage in this make-believe play or imagination games predominantly at what age? So, is it at infancy? Infancy is 0 to 2 years. At this stage, they are not playing too many games, therefore this is incorrect. Early childhood. Early childhood is 3 to 5 years. At this age, children are developing their imagination and they are not self-conscious where they are hesitant to play imaginary games. So they keep running around the house or running around the surroundings and imagining themselves to be various characters, and this is when they play a lot of imaginary games, or make-believe play is happening in early childhood. Therefore, that is the correct answer. Middle childhood is 6 to 12 years. At this stage, children are quite grown up, and adolescence is 13 to 17 years. Therefore, in middle childhood and adolescence, children very rarely engage in make-believe play. Therefore, early childhood is the correct answer here. Which of the following are secondary agencies of socialization? Now this is a very frequently asked question, and this is a very important question, and this is also a very easy question because you just have to remember that a family is always the primary agency of socialization and all the other options are secondary agencies of socialization. Therefore 2, 3 and 4 are secondary agencies of socialization. Therefore the answer here is 2, 3 and 4. So the simplest way to remember this is family comes first. Everything else comes next. Ruhi is playing with the 3 pencils and she observes that pencil A is longer than pencil B, and then she observes that pencil B is longer than pencil C. So without actually comparing pencil A and C, she automatically infers that pencil A must be longer than pencil C. So the question is asking us that as per Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory, which level of cognitive development is she demonstrating? So now this is transitive thought, because transitive inference or transitive thought says that children can use previous knowledge or pre-existing knowledge to determine missing pieces of information or develop their own knowledge. So this is basic logic. So Ruhi is using her knowledge that A is longer than B and B is longer than C, and she is filling in the missing information that is A longer than C. So this missing piece of information is something that she is automatically inferring. So this is transitive thought. In a separate video, I have explained more about seriation, conservation and hypothetico-deductive reasoning. These are also important concepts that you should be aware of. For this video or for this question, the correct answer is transitive thought. According to Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development, children in the operational stage are capable of which of the following? Now this question itself is incorrect. Therefore, all the candidates in this exam got full marks for this question irrespective of which answer they chose, because it should have been clearly mentioned which operational stage is being referred to here, because as per Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development, there are 4 developmental stages. The first one is sensory motor stage, and then there are 3 operational stages: pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage and formal operational stage. So here they should have mentioned what type of operational stage is being referred to, because that is missing. So this question is incorrect and all the students got full marks for this question. Which of the following stage is not proposed by Lawrence Kohlberg in his theory of moral reasoning? Now if we look at Lawrence Kohlberg's moral reasoning theory, we see that there are 3 levels. The first one is pre-conventional level, the second is conventional level, and the third one is post-conventional level. Now if you look at the answer choices, conventional is covered, post-conventional is covered, and pre-conventional is also covered under the theory, whereas unconventional is not a part of this theory. Therefore this is the correct answer because this was not proposed by Lawrence Kohlberg. A teacher wants to design the teaching learning process in her classroom on Lev Vygotsky's social constructivism principles. Which of the following should she avoid? Now, social constructivism in simple words is nothing but where children learn a lot through their interaction with their peers and with their teachers and with their family and with their community, right? And they gather little bits of information from everywhere and they construct the knowledge in their own brain, right? So social interactions happen and they gather information which they construct into knowledge in their own brain. So that is the simplest explanation of social constructivism. Now we have to see which one of these should the teacher avoid. First is designing teaching and learning experiences based on social context. Now this is something that she should not avoid, because if you are teaching about sources of water in a classroom, if you don't use context, which means that you are not using relevant examples. For example, if I am teaching about the sources of water to children in a city, then if I talk about well water and why well is a source of water, many of them might not even have seen a well in their life. So here I should use a tap as an example of a source of water. Whereas if I am talking to children in a village school, then they might be able to identify that a well can be a source of water. And many of them may not have taps in their houses, right? So this is using socially contextual examples. So a teacher should use social context in the teaching and learning experiences. Therefore, this is a correct statement. Next, closely observe the student's attempts at learning. This is absolutely correct, because the teacher should not only teach, but she should also observe how the children are actually learning. Therefore, this is a correct statement. Next, use formal standardized tests to assess learning. Now, this is an incorrect statement, because formal standardized tests cannot assess all the students, because each student is different and each student has to be assessed in a contextual manner. Each student can be assessed in a different way. Some students may do well in theory exams. Some students may do well if they are given practical exercises. Therefore, formal standardized tests are something that the teacher should avoid. Therefore, this is the answer to this question. The last one is providing scaffolding when needed. Scaffolding means support. So, providing support whenever the children need it is something that the teacher should not avoid. Therefore, this is also an incorrect statement. To facilitate a student's learning, which of the following is suggested by Lev Vygotsky in his theory of social constructivism? First, we have to understand what is this social constructivism. The simplest explanation for social constructivism is, first, there has to be a social interaction. That is, the child should interact with his peers, with his teachers, with his family, with his community. And the child will get little bits of information during these interactions. And then the child will construct the knowledge in his or her brain by using all these little bits of information that he or she has obtained through the social interactions. So first, there is social interaction. Information is gathered during these interactions, and then that information is used by the child to construct knowledge in his or her brain. So that is the simplest explanation of social constructivism. Now, to facilitate instruction through social constructivism, which of the following is suggested? Now, the first is peer collaboration. So when peer collaboration happens, the child is interacting with peers, that is other children of his or her own age. Therefore, this is very, very important, because this is a very important part of social interactions. Therefore, this is suggested by Lev Vygotsky in his theory. Now, if you look at the other options, the next one says non-interference of cultural tools. This is absolutely incorrect, because cultural tools are absolutely essential. And similarly, the last one, that is decontextualized curriculum, is also absolutely incorrect, because both culture and context are very, very important in education. For example, if I'm talking to Indian children about breakfast, and if I tell them that you should have cereals, sausages, muffins and pancakes for breakfast, then they might not even be able to understand what am I talking about, right? Because in an Indian context, from an Indian cultural context, right, the breakfasts that are popular in India might be idli, dosa, puri, litti, chokha or chapati, depending on the region of India. Therefore, culture and context are very, very important when it comes to education, because children should be able to understand what the teacher is talking, right? Therefore, non-interference of cultural tools is incorrect and decontextualization is also incorrect. Then focus on rote memorization. Rote memorization is just memorizing something without understanding it, and this is absolutely incorrect. Therefore, the only correct option is peer collaboration, which is recommended by Lev Vygotsky in his theory of social constructivism. A teacher in a progressive classroom should believe in which of the following? Now, when we look at a progressive classroom, here the learning is happening through interactions between the children, by experimentation, by hands-on learning, and the teacher is merely guiding the children, not just dictating everything. Right? Now, when we look at the option, the first one says class should always be in strict control and only teacher should dictate instruction. This is absolutely incorrect, because if only the teacher is dictating and only the students are always listening, then this cannot be a progressive classroom. Right? This is incorrect, because here even the children should get an opportunity to participate in the teaching and learning process. They should also get to contribute in the lesson. Therefore, only teacher should dictate instruction is incorrect. Next, learning takes place only in the classroom. This is also incorrect, because as we have already discussed, learning happens in many places. It can happen in the classroom, it can happen in the house, it can happen outside the classroom, it can happen during field visits. Therefore, learning takes place only in the classroom makes this an incorrect statement. Next, learners bring a rich variety of experiences with them in the classroom. This is a correct statement, because every student will have some experiences that he or she can share in the classroom. If you talk about birds, then different children can contribute in their own way and talk about the various birds that they have seen and they have touched, or the pets that they have. Therefore, every student or every learner can bring his or her own experience into the classroom. Therefore, this is a correct statement, and this is a part of a progressive classroom where all the students get to contribute. The last one says learners most meaningfully learn only through drill and practice. Drill and practice is just that you are giving them a problem and you are making them repeat the same problem or the same question again and again till they remember everything. So drill and practice is not a part of a progressive classroom. This is more like rote learning or memorization, which should be discouraged. Therefore, this is also an incorrect statement. Which of the following theorists dismissed that intelligence is unitary and proposed that there exist several distinct independent intelligences? Now, there are four options: Jean Piaget, Howard Gardner, Lev Vygotsky, and Lawrence Kohlberg. Now, all of these four are very, very important, because you have to know about what is their contribution to CDP, because all of these are very important personalities in this subject. The answer for this question is Howard Gardner, because Howard Gardner proposed that intelligence is not just of one type. There can be many different types of intelligences. For example, some children may have musical intelligence, some children may be smart athletically, and some children may have very good interpersonal intelligence, and some children may have natural or naturistic intelligence. Therefore, there are different types of intelligences. So the correct answer here is Howard Gardner. And in other videos, I have explained about what is the contribution of the other theorists that are mentioned here, which you should also see, because they are all very important from an exam point of view. There was a boy called Rohan who received a toy doll. It might be a Barbie doll. And he said that I don't like this toy because boys don't play with dolls. Now this is an example of what? Now this is not an example of gender stability, and this is not gender discrimination, and this is not gender relevance. This is gender stereotype, and that is the answer to this question. A stereotype is where there is an expectation based on gender. For example, it is expected that girls will play with dolls and kitchen sets, whereas boys will play with cars and guns. So there is an expectation, or there is a stereotyping of what type of dolls or what type of toys children will play with. Therefore, this is an example of gender stereotyping. A teacher facilitates and supports her student to work on multiple drafts of an essay over a period of 1 month. If she considers all the drafts of each student as well as the process of working on the same, what kind of assessment is she using? Now, here the teacher is actually helping the students draft the same essay over a period of 1 month. That is, she's looking at version 1 and telling them what improvements need to be made. Then the children create version 2. which again the teacher will read and give some more feedback, then version 3, then version 4, and finally the last version is version 5. So the students have learnt over a period of 1 month on what kind of mistakes that they are making, and they are forming or developing over a period of time. So this is formative assessment, because the teacher is not just trying to assess the students, she is trying to help them over a period of time. She is giving them qualitative inputs or qualitative feedbacks at every step so that they keep on improving and they finally reach their goal. So the teacher is not just using the final version of the essay for evaluation or assessment. She is using the entire process of all the essays that the students have written for assessment. So this is formative assessment, which happens over a long period of time. Now, summative assessment, norm referenced and standardized assessments are usually used for the final assessment, where you are just trying to measure or understand how much the students have learned. These are not intended for ongoing feedback. So these are mostly like the final exam that happens. So you should read and understand a little more about the various types of assessment, because there are questions that are asked about all these different types of assessments. But the answer to this question is formative assessment. In a multilingual classroom, a teacher should do which of the following? Now, in a multilingual classroom where there are children from different backgrounds who speak different languages at home, so is it necessary that the teacher should discourage the use of native languages for communication? This is incorrect, because the National Curriculum Framework says that children learn best if they learn in their native language, on their mother tongue. So children should not be discouraged from using their native language for communication in the classroom. So this is incorrect. Next, recognize only the predominant language used by the majority of students. This is also incorrect, because if there is a larger group of students who speak only one language and there are some students who speak a different language, so the students who are speaking the language less in number should not be discouraged. They should also be given an opportunity. Therefore, using only the predominant language is also incorrect. Next, create awareness about the diversity of languages and allow their use as per the student's preference. This is the correct answer, because all the children will get to understand that India has so many different types of languages and each language is special, and students should be allowed to use their own mother tongue or language of preference to express themselves. They might be writing the exams in one language. They might be writing it in English or Hindi or the language that is being followed there in that particular state. However, when it comes to expressing ideas or when it comes to discussion, when it comes to interacting with others, they should be allowed to interact and discuss and talk in their mother tongue or in their native language. Therefore, creating awareness about the diversity of language and allowing the students to use their own language as per their preference is a correct answer for this question. And the last one is discourage the use of languages other than the target language such as English. So this is also incorrect, because you should not teach only English in the classroom. You should teach multiple languages and children should be allowed to use their own mother tongues as well. If we go through the National Education Policy of 2020, it says that education should not just be limited to textbooks and syllabus and the classroom, but education should expand beyond these limited resources. Right? Education can happen outside the classroom, it can happen at home, in the community, among friends, among peers. Therefore, children should get an opportunity to learn from various sources. Therefore, focusing only on predetermined content, that is textbook and syllabus, this is incorrect. Next, focus on problem solving. This is correct, because the NEP says that children should develop problem solving skills and abilities. Similarly, they should develop critical thinking, and children should develop the attitude to inquire about things, to question things and discover a lot of knowledge by themselves. They should get an opportunity to experience things hands-on, experiment and learn things on their own. Therefore, problem solving, critical thinking and inquiry-driven, discovery-oriented learning are all things which are encouraged by the National Education Policy of 2020. Therefore, 1 is incorrect, 2, 3 and 4 are correct. Therefore, 2, 3 and 4 is the correct answer here. In order to complete her syllabus, a teacher always expects answers from a preferred group of learners. The teacher's action is what? Now, a preferred group of learners, they are also called teacher's pets, because there will be one set of students who are always the first to raise their hands, the first to answer any questions. So if the teacher is giving an opportunity only to these students to answer any questions that she is asking in the classroom, what is happening to the remaining students? They are not getting an opportunity to answer questions. They are not getting an opportunity to participate in the teaching and learning process. So the teacher's behavior is incorrect. So when we look at the answer choices, the first one is justified for completing the syllabus. Now, just completing the syllabus is not the entire objective of teaching and learning. All the students should get an opportunity to participate in the process. Therefore, this is incorrect. Next, is showing that the teacher has good skills to identify the best students of her class. This is also incorrect. Just because a student is not raising his or her hand to answer any questions doesn't mean that the student is not a best student, because it might be that some children feel shy to raise their hand in the classroom. Therefore, if the teacher does not give an opportunity to all students, then she is doing a disservice to such students. Therefore, this is also incorrect, because the teacher is not actually doing anything to identify the best students. Next, is depriving other students of equal opportunity. This is a correct statement, because by focusing only on the preferred group, the other children are being ignored. Therefore, they are not getting an equal opportunity to participate in the teaching and learning process. Therefore, this is a correct statement. The last one would be effective in ensuring equal participation of all students. This is absolutely incorrect, because as I said, by focusing only on one group, the other children are not getting an opportunity to participate equally. Therefore, this is incorrect. Before answering this question, you have to remember these three types of learning difficulties about which questions are frequently asked. Dyslexia means difficulty in reading, because lex is reading, and dysgraphia is difficulty in writing, because graph is writing, and dyscalculia is difficulty in mathematics or calculation, because calculia is related to calculations. Therefore, when we look at the question, it says to support inclusion of students having dyscalculia, it is important to do which of the following. Now, when we look at the four answer choices, the second one says provide visual calculators and math apps to student. This obviously is the correct answer, because dyscalculia is difficulty with mathematics and calculation. Therefore, by providing visual calculators and mathematics apps for students to learn maths and calculation, this is the best way that you can include students with dyscalculia in your classroom. Which of the following materials will not be beneficial for a student with visual impairment? So, visual impairment can mean visual difficulties, that is difficulty in seeing. It can be partial or complete blindness. Now, when we look at the answer choices, the first one says tactile globe, which is a globe in which all the countries are in a raised format so that it can be felt through fingers. So this is definitely useful for teaching children with visual impairments. Then books with small print. Now this, if books with small print are given to children with visual impairment, how can they read? So this is obviously incorrect, and it will not be helpful for children with visual impairment. Therefore, this has to be the correct answer. Next, screen reading software. So there is software which will help read out any documents that are on the screen of a computer. So if children cannot read, they can hear what is on the screen. Therefore, screen reading software is very useful. Next, braille books. So braille books are naturally used for teaching blind children. Therefore, this has to be useful for children with visual impairment. The assertion A says that in a language classroom, the teacher should provide audio books along with text materials or textbooks. And the reason given is that multiple options of representing cater to the needs of diverse learners, such as those with reading related disorders. So now in a classroom, if some children cannot read because they have dyslexia or they have visual disabilities, so in such a classroom, if along with textbooks, audiobooks are also given by the teacher, it means that children who have difficulty in reading can also participate and learn in that classroom. Therefore, the assertion A is correct, and the reason R is fully supporting the assertion A. Therefore, both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation for A. A creative child is likely to have which of the following? Now, before answering this question, you have to remember two things. One is divergent thinking, that is the ability to think differently. And then there is convergent thinking, which is common thinking, just like anybody else. So, if a child has an ability to think in a different manner, then the child is more likely to be creative. Whereas, if the child is just thinking in the same common way as anybody else, then this child is not likely to be creative. Therefore, a child who is displaying divergent thinking may be creative, and a child who is displaying convergent thinking may be normal. Therefore, when we look at the options, divergent thinking, this is something that is most likely there in creative children. Therefore, the correct answer should have 1 in it. When we look at the options, the last one does not have 1 in it. Therefore, we'll eliminate that. Next, convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is common thinking. Therefore, a creative child might not have convergent thinking. Therefore, the correct answer should not have 2 in it. The second option has 2 in it, eliminate. And the first option has 2 in it, eliminate. Therefore, we are left with only one option, that is option 3, which has to be the correct answer. Next, abstract thinking. So, abstract thinking is also something that creative children are likely to have, and the ability to generate novel products and ideas is also something that a creative child might do. Therefore, 1, 3 and 4 are correct. The assertion A says that a teacher should employ multiple ways of assessment in the classroom. And the reason is because children's success and failure in the classroom cannot be accurately and adequately determined only by a paper pencil test. Now, if you look at it, children are all different. Some children can do well in a written exam, some children can do well in a practical exam, and some children can do better in an oral exam. Therefore, the teacher should use different ways of assessment to ensure that she is assessing all the students. Because if she uses only paper pencil test, children who do well in a practical exam or a verbal or oral exam might not do well in a paper pencil test. But that does not mean that these children have not acquired the knowledge or what is being taught in the classroom. Therefore, a teacher should employ multiple ways of assessment. That is because assessment cannot be determined properly by just using one type of test, that is a paper pencil test. Therefore, assertion A is correct, and the reason R is also correct, and it supports the assertion A. Therefore, both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. So, this is the correct option. To teach a concept, a teacher is giving multiple examples and subsequently asking students to form a rule considering the information gathered through these examples. Which of the following approaches is being used here for concept formation among children? Now, imitative is an incorrect answer and competitive is an incorrect answer. So, let's eliminate that. Now, there are two possible correct options here. One is deductive and inductive. So, you have to understand what is deductive logic and what is inductive logic. Now, inductive logic is where you give several specific examples and you lead to a generic rule. That is, if you give an example that sparrows can fly and crows can fly, and sparrows and crows are birds. So, you are giving several specific examples. Then you come to a generic rule saying that since sparrows can fly and crows can fly and sparrows and crows are birds, therefore all birds can fly. So, you have used specific examples to come to a generic rule. Now, this rule might be correct or not, but you have used this approach here. So, similarly here the teacher has given multiple examples. For example, crows and birds and pigeons, and the students have formed a rule using these examples saying that since the crows and birds and pigeons can fly and all of these are birds, so probably all birds can fly. So, that is nothing but inductive logic. So, that is the correct answer here. Now, deductive logic is where you move from a generic rule to specific examples. For example, you say that birds have feathers. So, this is a generic statement, and then you say penguin is a bird. Therefore, penguin should have feathers. So, you have used a generic rule and moved towards a specific example. So, in inductive logic, you use specific examples to move towards a generic rule, and in deductive logic, you use a generic rule to move towards specific examples. Therefore, you have to remember what is deductive and what is inductive approach. Here the correct answer is inductive. To gain the cooperation of students in classroom management, a teacher should do which of the following? Now, this is a very simple human behavior question, because if students are just given a set of rules and they are said that they are told that you have to follow these rules, then there is a more likelihood that the children might not cooperate with the teacher. They might break the rules because they are not part of the creation of the rules. Whereas if children are also part of the process where the rules have been created, then they are more likely to cooperate with the teacher. They are more likely to maintain discipline in the class. Therefore, if a teacher is just creating the rules and enforcing the rules, then that might not be the best solution in managing the classroom. The students should also be part of the creation of rules and maintenance of discipline in the classroom. Therefore, when we look at the options, the first one says establish strict and rigid classroom rules herself. So if the teacher is establishing strict rules and rigid classroom rules, then she is not working in cooperation with the student. Therefore, this is incorrect. Next, frequently complain to parents about students' misbehavior. Well, this is also not part of doing any sort of a cooperation with the students. Therefore, this is also incorrect. Next, reprimand the students for not following rules. Now, reprimanding or scolding or punishing the students is also not cooperation with students. Therefore, this is also incorrect. The last one says establishing the norms and rules for classroom in collaboration with the students. So, cooperation is nothing but collaboration. Therefore, this has to be the correct answer. Choose the option that correctly represents the contexts in which learning takes place in children. As we have discussed earlier, learning in children happens not only in classrooms but also outside the classrooms. Learning happens when the child is at home, when the child is interacting with his or her family, with her peers, with his or her community, and even when the child is playing with his or her friends, even then a lot of learning is happening. Therefore, games and play is correct, home is also correct, and classroom is also correct, because in all these three contexts, learning can happen. Therefore, the correct answer is 1, 2, and 3. Which of the following is not an effective way to facilitate problem solving skills among students? So, which of the following is not an effective way of teaching or encouraging children to learn problem solving skills? Now, the first one is facilitate discussion on the topics and encourage students for participation. If students are discussing the problem in the classroom, and if you are encouraging all the students to participate in the discussion, then the students are discussing the problem, they are learning from each other, they are looking at various viewpoints. Therefore, this is definitely a way of facilitating problem solving skills, because peer learning is a very effective form of learning. Next, encourage students to brainstorm and generate ideas to solve problems. Now, brainstorming is very similar to a discussion, because if all the children are brainstorming, that is, they are discussing the problem and they are generating a lot of ideas to solve the problem, then this also is an effective way of facilitating problem solving skills. The third option is provide students with a variety of learning materials to find a solution for the problem. Here again, if children have access to books, if they have access to the internet, if they can speak to experts, if they can discuss with teachers or elders, then they are learning a lot more about the problem, and they are also finding various ways or various solutions of solving the problem. Therefore, this is also an effective way of facilitating problem solving skills. And the last one is emphasize one use of predetermined step-by-step procedure for every problem. Now, this is definitely not effective in facilitating problem solving skills, and this has to be the answer here. For example, if you use one predetermined step-by-step procedure, for example, if you teach some children that 1 plus 0.5 is 1.5, and if you make them memorize this step-by-step process, then they know how to solve this kind of problem. But what if tomorrow they see a different problem in which it is written 1 plus half is equal to what? Now here they are not able to solve this problem because they can't relate to this, because they don't know that half is nothing but 0.5. On the other hand, if you teach them the logic behind this and if you teach them the fundamentals, then they will be able to easily understand this problem and solve it, because this problem is nothing but the same problem as written above. Therefore, emphasizing the use of one predetermined step-by-step procedure is definitely not facilitating problem-solving skills. Therefore, that is the correct answer here. Which of these is a characteristic of a constructivist classroom? Now, before answering this question, let's again retouch upon what is a constructivist classroom. Now, in a constructivist classroom, the children are interacting with one another. So there is peer learning that is happening. The children are interacting with the teacher and they are also getting information from the books. So the children get information from these different sources and they construct the knowledge in their mind using all these little bits of information. Right? So now when you look at the answer choices, the first one says learners are passive in the process of learning. If learners are passive, that is, if they are not interacting with anyone else, they are just merely listening to what the teacher is saying and they are just trying to remember them, then this is definitely not a constructivist classroom, because in a constructivist classroom, the learning has to be active. It cannot be passive. Therefore, this is not a constructivist classroom. The next one is maximum emphasis is given on rote memorization of the textbook. Now, memorization or rote memorization is something that is absolutely discouraged in a constructivist classroom. Therefore, this cannot be the answer. Next, asking of questions by children is not encouraged in the classroom. Again here, if children are not asking questions, they are discouraged from asking questions, which it means that they are not active in the classroom. They are actually passive. Therefore, this is also incorrect. The last one is the previous experiences of the children are often used for construction of new knowledge in the classroom. This is absolutely correct, because if you are talking about birds and if you ask all the children to explain their own experiences or talk about their own experiences, then they can use their own previous experiences and they can use the other children's experiences to gather information and they can construct the new knowledge in the classroom. Therefore, this is definitely a characteristic of a constructivist classroom, and this is the answer to this question. Which of the following belief of a teacher is detrimental to students' learning? That is, which of the following is not correct or not good for the students' learning? Now, the first one is errors are part of the process of learning. Absolutely correct, because errors or mistakes are a way in which we can learn and we can improve. Therefore, errors are a part of learning. Therefore, this is something that a teacher should believe. Next, making errors is shameful act for the learners. This is incorrect, because errors happen, mistakes happen by anyone. So, making errors is not shameful. Therefore, the teacher should definitely not believe this. So, this is actually detrimental. Therefore, this has to be the answer. Next, errors provide insight to gaps in the conceptual learning of the learner. This is also absolutely correct, because by looking at the type of errors that the student is making, the teacher can understand what have they understood. Have they got the facts or the basics correct? Or is it a calculation mistake or an understanding mistake? Therefore, errors provide an insight. That is, they give the teacher a lot more information about how the students have learned. Therefore, this is a correct statement. The last one is learners must be given space to make errors without fear of being reprimanded. This is absolutely correct, because if children don't make mistakes, then they won't be able to learn. Therefore, children should be able to make mistakes without the fear of being punished for it. Therefore, learners must be given space to make errors or commit mistakes. Therefore, this is also a correct statement. Which of the following is an example of extrinsic motivation? So before answering this question, we first have to understand what is extrinsic and what is intrinsic motivation. Now, extrinsic motivation is external motivation, that is motivation that is coming in from outside, whereas intrinsic motivation is internal motivation, which is motivation coming from inside. That is, in is something that you can remember easily. Intrinsic comes from inside. Now, when we look at all the answer choices, while doing research, Arman consults various sources to be sure about his learnings. Now, there is no external motivation that is being mentioned here. Therefore, this is internal motivation because Arman is probably doing it because of his own need to be thorough. Next, Rohan researches from various sources for a project to get a cash prize. Now, Rohan is researching from many sources just because he wants to get a cash prize. So, cash prize is external. This is not because of his own self-satisfaction. This is because of the cash prize. Therefore, this is an example of extrinsic or external motivation. And the next one is to ensure self-satisfaction. Sitara takes regular feedback from her seniors. Now, self-satisfaction is internal. Therefore, this is not extrinsic. This is intrinsic. Next, for personal interest and to improve his capabilities, Kulmeet practices the task regularly. So, personal interest, again, this is coming in from inside Kulmeet. Therefore, this is intrinsic. The COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected the performance of the students in an examination. Which of the following relationship is highlighted in this statement? Now, if you read all the answer choices, you can see that this question can be answered very easily. That is, there is no mention of any hereditary factors or genes here. Therefore, heredity and environment and heredity and performance can be eliminated. Next, there is no computation that is being mentioned here, right? Therefore, computation and cognition can also be eliminated. So, only cognition and emotions is the option that we are left with, which has to be the correct answer. That is, you are cognizant of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the students in the examination, and you are also cognizant of the fact that the pandemic has negatively affected the performance of the students in the examination. Therefore, cognition and emotion is the best option here. Learning is more meaningful and effective when it is majorly which of the following? Now, this is a question that can be answered by using simple common sense. Now, if you are learning something just because it is teacher directed, that is, your teacher is asking you to learn something, will it be meaningful and effective? It will not be, because you are just learning out of compulsion. Therefore, this cannot be the answer. Next, directed by peers. That is, if you are learning something just because the others, that is your peers or your classmates or your friends are doing it, then will it be more meaningful and effective? No, because you are just trying to follow the crowd. And if it is textbook centric, that is, if you are just learning something which is there in the textbook without actually trying to understand anything outside, will it be meaningful and effective? No, because you are just trying to read and remember something because it is written in the textbook. Therefore, this also cannot be meaningful and effective. Whereas the last one says self-directed. So self-directed is where you are doing something out of your own interest, where the motivation is coming internally, that is intrinsic motivation. So if you are doing something out of your own interest, then it will be a lot more meaningful and effective. Therefore, whether it is adults or children, something that is self-directed, and if the learning is self-directed, it will be a lot more meaningful and effective. And with that, we have completed the 30 CDP questions from this question paper. If you have any questions or comments, you can post them in the comment section below, and I will answer them. So that's it for now. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you again in the next video.